Folks, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the brain body tools so your brain is optimized, does its best job, and you feel, look, and do your absolute best. Your brain is everything, folks. Every single thought, emotion, decision is filtered through and basically comes from and through your brain. And so you got to be very aware of your environment, the one that you, whether consciously or unconsciously, design and create. So your environment, what you hear, what you listen, what you read, what you eat, what you do, all of these things are part of your environment that ultimately shape your brain, because your brain gathers all this information and then based on its internal and external information makes the decisions, and then without consulting you, it's like it's asking you, we analyze, so this is a decision, do you agree? No, that's not gonna happen. What happens is you just do things, and then when results are positive, you're kind of okay with that. But when results are negative and do not work in the wider context of your life, then you're like, why does my brain work against me? Well, it does not work against you. It does its best to respond to your environment to actually help you to thrive. It just, the environment that you create for your brain to analyze is not always the right one to move you into the desired direction. That being said, folks, today we are talking about our gut, and that is one of the huge factors that is a part of your internal environment that your brain analyzes and communicates with constantly, nonstop. Your gut affects your brain affects your gut, the connection. There is this gut-brain axis, so there is physical connection. There is also a biochemical connection. So your gut creates certain molecules and they travel all the way up to your brain, and your brain creates certain molecules and they travel all the way to your gut. Plus your brain affects your metabolism and your gut affect your metabolism. So there is always this cross talk one way or the other. And there is really good research about how do we take care of our gut for optimal health in general, but also for our brain health. And today we're talking about the gut, the best research practices, and you're gonna know exactly what, according to research, you gotta pay attention to and do every single day if you want to optimize your gut for your overall health and fitness today and many years from now, and for your best brain state and performance. A lot of things, to start off, if you eat, for example, a suboptimal diet, things that don't really work for your gut, a lot of processed foods that were not designed for human gut to thrive, were not designed with the millions and trillions of gut bacteria in mind. Most of our, processed, ultra-processed foods, that's what I'm talking about, they were not designed to help our gut thrive or even survive optimally. So you want to understand that. And if you constantly eat that suboptimal diet right after your meals and then continuously throughout your day, you might feel more anxious. You might feel that your energy is all over the place. You might experience brain fog. You might experience ADHD. It might be harder for you to focus. It might be harder for you to sleep. It might be harder for you to think, to make decisions. Foods and the state of our gut affect the way our brain work a lot. And only now this whole notion is getting more and more popularity, but common knowledge, even if it's in scientific community and popular science, common knowledge is not common practice, especially in the environment where most of the foods we produce as society is processed. It doesn't really work for our gut. It confuses people, right? You're busy. You don't want to be thinking about what should I eat. But if you go to the store and most of the food is suboptimal and advertised to you, then it's harder to make those choices without, again, having proper expertise in the area. So today you're going to get some of that proper expertise, the best research-based practical advice on how to take care of your gut for optimal health and brain performance. There are only 4 practices, folks, and they're very, very simple. It's not about any diets, any carbs, any fats, specific foods. Those are guidelines that are very easy to implement in your life, no matter what life and health philosophy you have. So number 1 is circadian eating. And it is very important aspect of your gut's health and your well-being and your brain's performance. One of the leading researchers who did a lot of work and still is doing a lot of work on circadian biology and specifically different time patterns of eating and how they influence the health and well-being of different organisms and also humans. So Sachin Panda, check out his work. He came up with a new book. The first one was Circadian Clock. Well, the first book was about general health and different aspects of circadian biology. Now he came up with a second book, and that is about diabetes and how to eat so you don't get, diabetes and different kinds of metabolic disorders. So what he recommends, he was on Andrew Huberman's podcast some time ago, and they were talking about different practices, what matters, what doesn't matter. And so based on his studies, animal and human, circadian eating is about eating at appropriate for that specific animal time. So for mice, for example, that's actually at night. They eat at night. They're active at night. So when they feed them inappropriately during the day, what happens is mice get sick. They get all kinds of metabolic issues and they die younger, etc. So for us humans, folks, it's the opposite. We are active throughout the day, and that's when we need to eat. All the processes in our body and brain, they are synchronized with the day-night cycle. And when you start working against that, they did research actually on firefighters and some other shift workers. So when we compromise that cycle, what happens is we get diseases and health problems, and that goes to different metabolic problems with blood sugar, high blood pressure, different kinds of aspects of heart health and metabolic health get worse. So that is confirmed. And what Sachin Panta recommends based on all of his research and all of his studies is to eat in a 12-hour window in the appropriate for a human being times. That means that if you're a human being, you probably should be going to bed. If it's in your, power to change your schedule, you're not a shift worker. By 10, maximum like 11 p.m. at night, you should be going to bed. You should be waking up in about 8 hours. And the best time to eat is 2-3 hours before bedtime. You gotta finish your food. And a couple of hours after waking, that's when you start your breakfast. So what Sachin Panda recommends is to put your food you're eating into 12-hour window. So for example, if you start your breakfast at 8, you gotta finish your dinner by 8. Not start your dinner at 8, but finish everything by 8 or earlier. It seems that if you make this window shorter, if you prolong the eating window and you start eating in 13-hour window, you might end up your dinner, at 9 or even 10 right before going to bed or you start your breakfast earlier, even though, later dinner is more detrimental than earlier breakfast. So when you do that, health consequences follow. And the more you expand your eating window, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours, the more health problems you're going to have. So finish your dinner, again, 2-3 hours before bed. You sleep for 8 hours, right? That's already like 10, 13 hours. And then you wake up and don't eat for an hour, a couple of hours. That's what's recommended, again, as the best practice based on data and research. And there are all kinds of posts going on social media. If you stop eating before sunset, then, magic happens. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily should be around sunset, because in some parts of the world, like I'm from Siberia, for example, during winter, the only times you have light is from 10 a.m. to like 2 p.m. So what, should I just eat in 4-hour window? Never worked for me. All right. But be aware of this fact that 2-3 hours before bed, you shouldn't be eating. You need to digest your food before going to bed for optimal sleep experience. That also, of course, influences your brain performance and also your gut health. And then a couple of hours before bed, you don't, or a couple of hours after you wake up, you don't eat also. So 12 hours, that's the first aspect of circadian eating. The second aspect of circadian eating is eat at the same time. Now, why is that important? It's important because your brain synchronizes a lot of your processes in the body according to three major facts of your living: when you go to bed, when you wake up, when you see sunlight, and when you eat. Those factors are very important for many different reasons for our survival, right? When the sun is out, throughout the evolution, you would go out, you would hunt, you would get resources. So you needed to be ready. Everything has to be synchronized to give you energy, to give you all the necessary components to make you ready to go and hunt or gather, make your life work, right? So that's why, sleep times and light times synchronize a lot of things. But the third aspect is your eating window, because guess what, folks? Your eating is what life depends on. If you don't get your energy, your nutrients, everything else in your body is going to be compromised, because your nutrition is your survival, quite literally. And our digestive processes gotta be, our different organs gotta be synchronized in their work to absorb the nutrients, digest the nutrients. There are so many things going on, from releasing different enzymes to digest fats and carbs and proteins, releasing, biles to digest fats, and then gut microbiome has to participate. So all of that, and then, insulin to absorb that blood sugar into the cells that we get from our foods. So all of these processes has to be synchronized and work together in order to make eating work. And when your eating time is all over the place, what happens is your brain, your body, they don't know when to expect what. And it's kind of like if you start exercising without the warm up, everything is a little bit off, because it's going to take 10-15 minutes to start up your whole system, or sometimes even 20-30 minutes. Blood circulation, delivering the fuels to your muscles, etc. But if you were to do warm up and if you were to do exercise on the same time, your brain will synchronize different processes and will get you ready for that bout of exercise. Well, the same happens with food. When you eat it on the same time, your body and your brain know what to expect. They make everything in your body and brain ready. And when the food comes, you are much more effective with digestion, absorption of nutrients, elimination of different byproducts of these processes, and using your blood sugar, etc., etc., etc. Right? So you wanna understand, is everything in your day is synchronized by your meal times, one of the factors, and also that your brain and body are getting ready for that food and are much better at dealing with that when you eat on the same times. And also what Sachin Panda recommends, don't just eat 15 times a day, meaning, well, you have breakfast and then you have, piece of cookie or whatever that is, nuts, or you have an apple, and then half an hour later you have something else, and half an hour later you have something else, and then you drink some, juice and smoothie, and you're basically eating like 16 times per day, right? Every single piece of food counts, and so your digestive system never really switches from digestion, absorption, elimination into rest, and then back into work, and you're using it the whole time. So what they notice is, when you're eating throughout your whole day, and it's basically always the eating time, your digestive system works worse and you seem to have more metabolic issue. So there is no exact precise data what exactly going to happen to you if you just, eat whenever, whatever. But from the data that Sachin Panda has, and, nobody seems to disagree with him, that when you eat on schedule, when you eat in those 12 hours, and you don't eat late, and you don't eat too early, all these practices will improve your gut health and your overall health and performance by a lot. So your sleep going to be improved, your energy going to be improved, your health, performance, everything, just because you're going to get optimized, because again, everything is going to be synchronized. So those are two aspects of circadian eating in that 12-hour window that is appropriate for a human being, and eating on the same schedule. When you're going to eat, doesn't matter. There seems to be some benefits for earlier eating, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and then dinner like a pauper, or, eat breakfast yourself, lunch share with friend, and dinner give to your enemies or something like that. But the idea seems also beneficial to be eating more during the first part of the day when everything in your digestive system is more active. Now, let's step back for a moment, and I want to tell you a little bit of my story. As a kid, I had very poor gut health. Seemed like almost every single food triggered my gut. I would get either, gas, indigestion, then I developed autoimmune condition, and a lot of foods would make me sick. But I didn't have that as a kid. I actually developed it around my early teenage years. And then once I started learning later in life all these different practices for gut health, and now I have, I follow these practices so well and so consistently. And so having all these issues before, and now being in a place where my gut never gives me any problems. I'm very regular with everything, and I can eat beans and I can eat different foods. Now, of course, if I eat shitty foods, it's still gonna make me not feel good because I'm usually very healthy and vibrant, right? And any kind of deviation, I would feel it, but I don't get sick. I don't get allergies to any whole foods. I eat all kinds of nuts and seeds and dairy and fish and shellfish. Everything never gives me any problem as long as, food of high quality, not some ultra processed stuff. And I know that works. And I also know that my sleep got better, my emotional mental health got better, my productivity got better, like everything got better. And also, I'm going to mention a couple of other practices today. I noticed that if I don't do them, I notice the difference, specifically in my digestion, for example, right away. And as we jump into the second practice, I'm going to share with you what gives me indigestion right away when I forget to do this one practice. And I'll explain to you also why it's important. To cut the long story short, folks, gut health matters. It's one of your major systems in your body that affects everything else, from your energy levels to your mental health, to your sleep, to your brain productivity. And so these practices, they truly matter. Just because our environment in a modern world is optimized for selling us stuff 24/7 doesn't mean that we gonna be healthy with that. The problem, again, in our today's world is that the system is set up to sell stuff, not to keep people healthy. Otherwise, all the stores would close at appropriate time, 5, 6 p.m., and you should have your dinner and go to sleep, not go to some 24/7 diner or cafe or restaurant. But that being said, let's jump into the second aspect of our gut health and practical aspect of it. Number 2 is not eating and working or watching TV. When you start eating, you gotta be in a state of rest and digest, parasympathetic system, where all the available blood flow ideally would go to your digestive system to stimulate the production of digestive enzymes, certain biles, certain hormones, and then to make the absorption of all of that goodness smooth and easy. It requires a lot of different energy and a lot of blood flow, etc. So when you eat, and you start working, that blood flow goes towards your brain. And plus, when you work, usually they're mild or bigger stressors. And so you are switching in a more stressed state that is not designed for digestion. Your blood flow goes towards your brain, not towards your stomach where it's supposed to be. And you start experiencing problems. It's been shown in research that less circulation, blood circulation towards your gut, because you're always stressed. And in a case of stress, your blood flow goes towards your brain, towards your limbs, not towards your gut. So what happens is your gut is always deprived of that blood circulation that takes care of your gut, helps the microbes to thrive, the microbes that maintain gut lining and that help to absorb and digest nutrients, to eliminate stuff that produce all kinds of goodness for your brain. So when your blood flow, because you're always in this stressed and cognitively active state, and there is, again, not enough blood flow to your digestive system, over time, when you do that consistently, your gut health will get worse and worse and worse, because it's kind of like not supplying oxygen and blood to your brain. That, in research, shows one of the worst things you can do to make the blood flow towards your brain worse. It's going to lead to the death of cells in your brain. And all of the process is going to get worse and worse and worse, because for optimal function, organs need optimal blood circulation. There are nutrients, there is oxygen, there are elimination of byproducts of work of any organ and tissue. And so again, when your gut doesn't get that during your eating process, doesn't get that blood flow, and you do it over and over and over again, you always eat and do something, and then the rest of the day, and perhaps you didn't manage your stress and you're in that stress state, your gut gets very poor circulation. And that is also really bad. It's not your brain that suffers from poor gut circulation. Your gut, or from poor blood circulation, it's also your gut that suffers from that as well, just like any other organ and tissue, by the way. And so when you work and you eat, you remove a huge part of that blood supply toward the gut, toward your digestive system, in the moment when they need it the most. Digestion of nutrients, assimilation, absorption, doing all kinds of stuff. So you get all the nutrition and eliminate all the bad stuff. And so your immune system also works perfectly. So when you eat and work, or also watch TV, and that also doesn't work for your gut for many other different reasons. Like, for example, your brain will not be able to analyze all that well what food is coming and what kind of enzymes to prepare, what kinds of digestive juices to create, what kind of environment to create in your stomach and in your gut, and then how to, for example, release your blood sugar, etc. So distracting your mind with TV and listening to podcasts, for example, not great. Whenever you turn your brain on while digesting food, in a sense that your brain has to do some cognitive work or pay attention to something else, you are compromising your digestion, your gut health. And there are so many things that are not going to work well just because you don't sit and just eat. And that one practice, folks, for me personally changes everything. If I decide to eat and do something else, I always experience more heaviness and bloating, and I feel less energy after my meals. And it feels like sometimes, depending on the meal and what I do, it feels like there are bricks in my stomach, literally, and for some reason they are not digesting that well. And it all happens when I don't allow myself those 30 minutes for just, be sitting and eating. It's also a great mindfulness practice. And you'll notice that all of a sudden you start feeling and tasting so much more of your food just because you pay attention to your food. And also your satiety signals will kick in, and there is much less chance that you ever gonna overeat when you just sit, eat, chew your food, enjoy your food. So that's practice number 2 for a healthy gut great digestion, and because of that, great brain work. Because, when you sit down and just eat and allow your digestive system to do its best work, guess what, folks? It's going to go more effectively, and you're going to get all this energy and blood flow back to your brain with all the nutrients in no time, and then you can dedicate all your productivity to your work. So it works in so many different ways. So practice number 2, don't eat and work or do anything. Just eat. Pay attention to what you eat. Enjoy it. It's a joyful practice. Enjoy your food. And from enjoying your food to what do you actually need to eat to keep your gut healthy. There are two very simple things, and you probably heard about them. One probably more than the other, even though the research shows that the other seems to produce more benefits. So let's start with the one that you're probably familiar with, fiber. Eating your fiber, not from supplements, but from whole foods, your fruit, vegetables, nuts, grains, beans, essential practice for your gut health. Why is that? Because your gut health depends on healthy gut microbiome, those bacteria that maintain your gut lining, absorb nutrients, digest nutrients, create all kinds of stuff that travels all the way to your brain. They also modulate your immune system, your inflammatory responses, your stress levels. Gut bacteria even seem to be beneficial when you sleep and when you exercise. I read a research not so long ago that I shared on this podcast. It seems that certain kinds of bacteria make you more likely to exercise. But guess what, folks? You actually need to feed all these gut bacteria. They, just like as you, do not live on thin air. They need food, and their food is fiber. And the variety of different fibers are what is the most beneficial for maintaining diverse gut microbiome. And from the research we have on real humans, it seems that the more diverse your gut microbiome is, the better your gut health and the less health problems you seem to have. So the diverse microbiome and eating fiber. Two aspects, right? So in order to get diversity of fibers, you got to eat diversity of foods. And here we have fruit and vegetables that also have different fibers. We have nuts and seeds, we have beans, we have grains. So all of these foods contain different mixtures of different fibers. So you kind of want to have a variety. For me, I have my beans every day, not so much into grains. As I, read the literature, it seems like if you eat beans and vegetables and fruit and nuts and seeds, and then, grains are not really that important because you're already getting all different kinds of fibers. But that's just my personal preference. Where you get your fiber is your choice. A couple of guidelines. Don't believe all the processed food labels, like this has so much fiber. Most of processed food would still have less fiber than whole foods, number one. Plus, there's going to be a lot of junk that cancels the benefits of fiber. So that's aspect number one, right? Get your fiber from whole foods, variety of those whole foods. And number two, I think the amount of fiber you want to get per day, the minimum amount of fiber, what is recommended is 25 to 30 grams per day. They say that on average, people actually get 15 grams of fiber. So the next question that people often ask me, how much fiber is in foods? A logical question. The champion for fiber, and that's why I eat it every day, and my gut health seems to be loving it. Plus, it's going to, again, feed you fear. It's going to make you satiated for hours and hours. It's going to help you to maintain blood sugar, the bedrock of your focus and brain productivity. So the champions of fiber are beans and lentils. To give you the comparison, folks, a cup of cooked lentils and beans is about 15 grams of fiber, 15 grams. So imagine you eat a cup of beans a day, cooked, measured cooked, and you get 15 grams of fiber already, like half of those 30 grams, right? And then compare that to a cup of oats. Cooked oats, 1 cup is only 4 grams of fiber, right? Big difference. 1 cup of beans, 15 grams, 1 cup of oats, 4 grams. And that's kind of universal for most of the grains and beans. So beans, why I love them more than grains, because they actually have more fiber. And then we get to things like fruit, vegetables and fruit. What you want to understand, when there is bulk, like let's say broccoli, compared to leafy stuff like spinach, bulkier stuff always have more fiber. So broccoli, if I remember correctly, is about 4 or 5 grams of fiber per cup, kind of like your oats. Whereas leafy greens, it's like 1-2 grams per cup if you like really, stick it into that cup. Leafy greens do not have a lot of fiber. They have a lot of micronutrients and water, but not a lot of fiber. So one average banana is about 3.5 grams of fiber. And in that realm, between like 3 and 6 grams of fiber per cup, you would usually get for your fruit and vegetables. Some have some more, some have less. But again, back to where do you get the most? Your beans and lentils. And that's why I eat a cup or more of those every single day too. When I look at my nutrition, I always ask myself this question. Based on my knowledge, where do you get the most benefits? And when it comes to fiber, it's beans. I'm like, okay, I'm eating beans and lentils. And my whole family actually now eats beans and lentils because of that. It was not our staple when I was growing up, but now it is, because I talk about it so much. And also beans are amazing for maintaining lean body weight, because it makes you feel satiated and not hungry for much longer because of that fiber aspect. And it helps to maintain that blood sugar that also plays into your hunger levels. So it helps to maintain that blood sugar at a balanced level for longer, and it supplies that blood sugar that your brain loves so much in a more steady fashion, and that allows you to stay focused and productive. See how it's all connected? Eat your beans, your gut will be super happy, and your brain also will be super happy. So when it comes to fiber, again, 30 grams per day at least. Eat more. Beans are your champions, and then you have things like other whole foods, grains, vegetables, seeds, nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are also about that. Although no, I think actually nuts and seeds have more fiber, but the thing about nuts and seeds, they also have a lot more calories. So that's why it makes them less ideal for fiber than beans, but they're also high in fiber, all kinds of nuts and seeds. Now, so this is aspect number 3 that you probably heard about. Feed your gut its fiber from whole foods if you want to maintain diverse, healthy gut microbiome that will maintain your gut health. Your gut microbes, those are the workers who maintain your house. It's kind of like this maintenance team for your house that is called your gut. So remember that you got to feed those guys. Otherwise, they're going to die, leave, and other bad guys going to come in, quite literally, and take over and ruin your house. Jokes aside, now we get your fiber. And aspect number 4 of eating for your gut is eating probiotic-rich foods. That actually in studies has been shown to produce more positive changes in your gut over time when you do it consistently. And by consistently, we mean every day. So what has been shown in studies that helps you to maintain a super healthy gut? In studies, it's been shown that when people eat 2 to 4 servings of fermented foods per day, help people to maintain the healthiest gut and gut diversity of all the other people. 2 to 4 servings, what does it look like? My favorite fermented food that I found to find easy anywhere, yogurt. I eat yogurt without sugar every single day. I eat 500 milliliters of it, and serving of yogurt is about 150 milliliters or about so. So that's your, average cup of yogurt. So I eat at least 3 of those in those 500 milliliters of yogurt. Now, other great foods that I actually miss, but I can't find them here in Brazil right now, sauerkraut and kimchi, and all kinds of other naturally pickled and fermented vegetables. There is also, kombucha. So the serving for vegetables and, things like sauerkraut. I usually about 3 tablespoons. So 2-4 servings will be, double and triple this. When it comes to things like kombucha, a cup is a serving size, right? Just be careful about the ingredients that go into that, like the amount of sugars, etc. Even though I just recently read a piece of research on gut microbiome that it seems that positive aspects of fermented foods, naturally fermented foods, come from foods that also in their original state contain sugar. Like, for example, if some people put into the recipe of kombucha some sugar, right? Or into the recipe of sauerkraut or pickled vegetables. Now, the fermentation process seems to be affecting that sugar, the content, the kind, in a way that makes this food still super, super beneficial for your gut. So, but make sure that, for example, your yogurt, if there was some sugar added, that it's actually naturally fermented. And on yogurt, my favorite yogurt, by the way, is Activia with no added sugar, nothing. But make sure that if you do consume yogurt with some flavorings, natural, added berries or fruit, or even if there is a little bit of honey or whatever natural sugar, make sure that this yogurt contains live bacteria. And usually they say what kind of bacteria. That is very important, because if it says yogurt and it doesn't say anything about bacteria, chances are it's just stuff that looks and tastes like yogurt, but there are no live bacteria and there is the sugar added. And so there is nothing good about it. It's kind of like a snack. So that's your guide to choosing your fermented foods. Also, all kinds of pickles and things like fermented vegetables. A lot of times they're not naturally fermented. It's just there is some vinegar added, something else to make it taste and look like that fermented vegetable, but it's not actually naturally fermented vegetable, right? So you want to make sure that you're actually getting the real deal. And that's about it, folks. These are the core and most essential practices that matter for your gut health, your overall well-being, and brain performance. Because brain and gut, they're friends, and they just depend on each other like the tightest team. So remember that, right? Your mental health, your brain productivity depend on your gut, and everything else actually depend on your gut as well. So to sum it up, core practices: circadian eating, meaning eat in 12-hour window, 2 hours before bed, don't eat right away when you wake up, eat on regular meal times, 3-4 times per day, but don't eat 16 times per day, right? Number 2, don't eat and do other stuff when you eat. Just eat, supply that blood towards your gut, not to your brain and muscles when you need to be digesting food. Number 3, eat your fiber, shoot for 30 grams per day or more. Your champions are beans here. And number 4, eat 2-4 servings of fermented foods of your choice. And that's it, folks. I wish you got a lot of happiness and well-being, and everything else will get better because of that. Did I mention that the immune system also depends on a healthy gut? So, folks, if you get sick often, look into your gut. By the way, unmanaged stress is really bad for your gut as well as for your brain. Remember about that too. And that's it for today. I think we talked enough about the gut. And on Monday, please be sure to tune in. Now that we prepared your gut for all the nutrition that is coming, we're going to be talking about the actual nutrition, the latest research, all the brain nutrients and what they do, how they affect your brain, with the PhD of nutrition, Krista Masterjohn. That is coming on Monday. Now that you know how to maintain the perfectly well and taken care of gut, we're going to talk about nutrition, so stay tuned. And don't forget, folks, share. Let's all have healthy guts, suffer less, and enjoy this life, creating amazing world all around us. Happy gut is a lot more smiling people, folks. So share this episode, do it together with a friend, with girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, your kids. Together, it's always more fun, and we stick with it. So share this podcast, talk about that, practice it. If you have feedback, please send it to me, Angela at brainbreakthroughcoach.com. And till next time, have an awesome weekend. Take care of your gut, and I'll talk to you very soon.